And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive, Friday, December 12th. And we haven't had this kind of conversation in a while. We've got an actual slate. 6 games ahead of us on DraftKings, 7 games ahead of us on FanDuel. And we're here to break it all down. We've got plenty of time to work through this one game by game. And then we're going to turn it over to Live Before Lock. You're going to get Greg. You're going to get Spags. So hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. It's the same Friday crew you always get, the best Friday crew possible. DK is here. I am here. Follow me at Josh Engleman. Follow him at DK__DFS. We've got a decent chunk of basketball today. Unfortunately, the games are mostly subpar.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's nice that we have more games on the slate, but almost all of them are shitty games. So it's not like we have a ton of great basketball. But yeah, it's good to have a decent size slate. The small slates are fun here and there, but when you have 2, 3 in a row, they're a little bit dull.
Yeah, I'm ready for this one today.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have it back, at least a little bit. Just a single game next Tuesday, however.
Yeah.
So showdown time. But that's not what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to break down the slate. And I say we just dive in. Plenty to talk about. We're going to break it down first with the Chicago Bulls and the Charlotte Hornets. I'm pulling them up right now, because we got a lot to talk about for these guys, especially on the Charlotte side, which you will see noted at the top of all of the ownership that is on the screen. So for Chicago, it's business as usual, save for Ayo Dosunmu being out. But Kobe White, Isaac Okoro, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, Jalen Smith, all probable. Charlotte, on the other hand, has a slightly different day today. No Colin Sexton, no LaMelo Ball, no Trey Mann. For reference sake, also no Pat Connaughton, Liam McNeely. We're looking at a starting lineup of KJ Simpson, Con Knipple, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Moussa Diabate now probable. Started the day a little bit worse, but he is here for now. And that is giving us 45% owned KJ Simpson, 40% owned Brandon Miller, 30% owned Con Knipple, 30% owned Miles Bridges. It takes 17% of Kobe White as the 5th most owned dude in this game before we get to anything. Josh Giddey, Kalkbrenner, both around 10. But we know where we need to start. It's in the Simpson, Miller, Knipple, Bridges group. Take it wherever you want to go here, because I'm guessing there's at least someone you like a lot, someone you probably don't like all that much, and then some stuff in between.
Yeah, so start with the Charlotte side. I think this is one of the better teams to get to. We got no LaMelo Ball, no Colin Sexton, no Trey Mann. So there are three of their primary ball handlers all out. So that's going to open up a lot. Obviously, there's more usage to go around with LaMelo off the court. Some relatively small sample size, but Brandon Miller's got a 31% usage rate with LaMelo off the court. Miles Bridges, 27% usage rate. It has been Con Knipple as kind of your primary playmaker over the last couple of games. Him and Miles Bridges with LaMelo out. So Con Knipple averaging 11 potential assists per game. Bridges at 11.5 after 18 in the most recent game. So those two also not only get a usage bump, but they're going to be, again, the ball in the hands more. And so, yeah, there's a lot to like with those three. And then obviously KJ Simpson, too, is extremely popular right now, projecting for almost 50% ownership. And I think I agree. I mean, his rotation was pretty solid last game. So 2 games ago, he came in, played 28 minutes. That was when LaMelo got injured early. And then last game, he started and played 29 minutes. So he definitely stands out as one of the best point per dollar values on the slate. But those 3 wings look really good as well. Miller, Knipple, and Bridges. All of them popular too. I think my preferred option probably would be Bridges, since right now he is the lowest owned. I do think he probably has the highest ceiling of that group. I think you're not projecting it, but you could see Miles Bridges push for 38, 40 minutes for sure. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think the upside is extremely high on Bridges. Again, Knipple, a lot more ball handling. And then Brandon Miller, the usage has been there. He's been struggling with the shot. But, if he can actually have one of those games where he knocks down a few shots and doesn't shoot really bad, the ceiling is there. So all in all, yeah, I think this is one of your best teams to get to. And I basically agree with all the ownership for those top four guys.
I'm right around the field on KJ Simpson. I'm right around the field on Brandon Miller. I'm right around the field on Con Knipple. But the one guy that you like quite a bit is the one guy that I don't have, and I don't really like that all that much at 7,500 in this matchup against the Bulls. That is something that I will probably play with a little bit as we get closer to lock. But I don't need essentially zero Miles Bridges here. I don't have to like him personally to want to roster him today, and I want to roster him against the Bulls because it's the Bulls. But the rest of these guys, I mean, you said it, like, yeah, KJ Simpson's 4,500 and way too cheap for what this is. I get why he has the ownership. I agree with it. Brandon Miller can take every shot he possibly wants. He's at a small forward position that's typically pretty difficult to fill. Love it. Con Knipple is just playing big minutes and out there and good. Like, when you take LaMelo Ball off, he gets a benefit of getting to be more of whatever he thinks he is right now. And then we get to Bridges, who I agree with your take. My exposures don't necessarily agree right now. We'll see what that looks like. Any interest in flipping the coin between Kalkbrenner or Diabate? I don't really have much of a take between those two guys.
Yeah, I don't really have a super strong take right now. Kalkbrenner, I think just a little safer starting. Ownership's not crazy on them, 10% Kalkbrenner, so 5% Diabate. They're both playable. We do have some cheap centers that we'll talk about in a bit. One specifically, I think it's pretty hard to get away from. But they're still playable. And then I had one other thing to mention too. In their most recent game, Knipple and Bridges in the second half played a ton. Like Knipple played 21 second half minutes, same with Miles Bridges. So that's why I said like I think the ceiling for their minutes is like both those guys could push for 40 minutes. I would not be surprised. Again, you're not projecting that, but at least we know that that is I think in the range of outcomes for those two.
Yeah, especially because they don't really have a lot of bodies. Like Diabate and Kalkbrenner are essentially going to split the center minutes. If they don't, it might be like Solon as the 5 or Bridges as the 5. Like, you don't expect to see Mason Plumlee. So, like, he basically doesn't count. Drew Peterson barely plays. Josh Green hasn't played all year. He is back officially today. I don't expect him to get anything resembling normal run. If he plays 16 minutes, like, that's probably about it. And you're just out of body. The Zion James is left and Tijan Solon. So if this one's competitive, yeah, I agree. Like, I think you're very live to see Knipple out there for 36 plus. Bridges certainly out there for 36 plus. I don't know what Brandon Miller can handle right now because he's just been so in and out. And like, it's not like KJ Simpson can't soak it up. They don't have a ton of alternative options, especially if he's going well. And it's not like it's a matchup we're looking at where it's like, oh, well, that might be tough. It's not tough. It's right. The Bulls. What about the Bulls, though? Because it's not like they don't get a butte, but they're getting crowded. 6,900 for Kobe White, 9,600 for Josh Giddey. Neither guy really pulling all that much ownership. Vooch still here. Do you want to get to any of these Bulls pieces, considering we're going to have this much Charlotte?
Yeah, I think the Bulls are interesting for tournaments right now. Really, the only two guys getting ownership are Giddey and Kobe White. Kobe White was limited, has been limited the last couple of games. I think he'll be back to full go here. So I think you can definitely see over 30 minutes from Kobe White. Reasonable price point there at 6,900. Josh Giddey at 9,600. Been averaging about 35 minutes per game. I think a solid contrarian spend up, a guy that obviously we have seen the ceiling. Production's been a little bit up and down, but ceiling's clearly there. It's a great matchup. Vucevic not getting much ownership. The price has come down. However, you do have Zach Collins available, and that does hurt cap the minutes ceiling really for Vucevic. So 21 and 19 minutes first couple games back there for Zach Collins. So unless something weird happens, like I would be pretty surprised if Vooch is like playing like low to mid 30s. So I know the prices come down. It's a decent spot, but still tough to get to them and high opportunity cost because there's some really good center plays on this slate. Trey Jones should be available. I expect him to be on a limit though, so I don't think I can get to Trey Jones. Usually we see these guys coming back from injury and playing like 25 minutes for the Bulls if they've been out for a bit. They're usually limited for the first couple games back. So don't think I can get to Trey Jones. Zach Collins on a different slate where we were lacking value, I think would be a little bit interesting because he's a good point per minute player. But again, he's only center eligible. So it's tough to make the argument for him. So basically, yeah, all in all, I think it's the top two. I kind of agree with the ownership. Like White and Giddey, I think are guys you can mix in for sure.
This is going to be a slate that really chaps my ass the whole day. I've got a pretty decent chunk of Josh Giddey right now, and I guess from a DFS perspective, I'm happy about it. But it's Josh Giddey, so I don't typically love having him. But in a matchup here against the Hornets, I don't love that Kobe White is just going to be out there playing a ton, but I'm not finding any issue getting to Josh Giddey. I'm not finding any issue getting to Jalen Johnson, who we'll talk about in a bit. I've got more than enough of someone like Evan Mobley. That's also a bit of a pay up option today, like in the 8s, but still, I think there's just enough salary for me to get to some of these guys. And we don't have like the uber super duper stars going today. And I think that makes me feel a little bit better about where I'm at. But that's probably more than enough time spent on Chicago and Charlotte. But look, Charlotte's got an absolute boatload of ownership coming in right now. Next game, on the other hand, Atlanta and Detroit. A legitimately good game. Probably the only good game on the slate. I'd love for them to be at full strength. Atlanta is not. No Trae Young, obviously. No Kristaps Porzingis, kind of obviously at this point. $10,600 Jalen Johnson is 34% owned, which surprised me this morning and surprises me less now. After that, there's no ownership here. 10% to Asar, 10% to Tobias Harris, 10% to Cade Cunningham, just shy of 10 for Jalen Duren. Let's talk about the Atlanta side since they're missing Porzingis as per usual. And it's leading to this sort of ownership for Jalen Johnson in what is not a great matchup. How do you feel about him here?
Yeah, it's not a great matchup. I think maybe going a little bit over-owned. I hate saying that because Jalen Johnson's won me a lot of money this year. And this guy's role is insane right now. But as you mentioned, it's not the best matchup. The price point is at a high to a 10.6K. But like, again, his role is great, right? With Trae Young, Porzingis off the court this year, he's got a 28% usage rate. He's got a 35.6% assist percentage. He's rebounding the ball really well as too. He's averaging 14.1 rebounds per 100 possessions. So he's basically doing everything right now for this team. And he's playing huge minutes. Like Atlanta, when they are shorthanded, they just trim down their rotation. Last game, they played let's see. They technically played 10 guys, but like Keaton Wallace played 3 minutes. Moge played 8. Noel played 12. So like they're really leaning on their main 4 guys, Nickeil, Okongwu, Jalen, and Dyson Daniels. And so, yeah, like all in all, I get why he's getting ownership. Again, there's not a lot of spend ups in the slate and his role is great, but I will say, I think he is going a bit over owned if 35% is going to hold.
Well, I won't even tell you what I have then. I am 2xing Jalen Duren, which I don't hate for 7,800 here. He's 8% owned and kind of just flying under the radar right now. I'm more than happy to get to him. I thought I'd get to a little bit more Atlanta, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. These guys aren't pulling any ownership, and I guess I'm not all that surprised by it.
Yeah, it's the pricing, I think. Like Okongwu's priced right at 8,200. Nickeil and Dyson both in the low 7K range. I mean, I guess Vit Krejci is like a little bit interesting as a contrarian value at 4K. We have been he's been playing over Ricochet, and so like he's last couple of games 28 and 31 minutes. So I think he's at least a little bit interesting in a large field tournament because of the price point. Ricochet is a guy, he's kind of weird. Like you actually want the blowout for him. We saw 3 games ago, he played 33 minutes. That was the game that blew out. And then there was another recent blowout too. I think it was that game against Washington where he played 30 minutes. So if you think this game does get out of hand, which it's possible, Detroit are 7.5 point favorites, like Ricochet would actually benefit. But again, 4.8K is still tough to pull the trigger there. So I mean, I think Atlanta's going to run a tight rotation. Sorry, what? Okay. I just got like weird.
A call came in my phone and took over my AirPods. So I was hearing you on a 4-second delay and I thought you were done.
Okay, yeah. And then like it was like delayed in my ear for a second too. I was like, wait, what just happened? But yeah, no, that's basically all
technology.
I got for Atlanta.
Yeah, I've got 1,000,000,000% of Jalen Johnson right now. I do have like 8% of Vit Krejci, and then that's essentially it. I like the idea of getting to more Cade, given Jalen Johnson being 34% owned and Cade is 9. Like, I don't think those guys are all that dissimilar. The ceiling projections on the screen right now are separated by 4 points. Like, 4 points is a lot, but on a day like today, I do feel like Cade is more intriguing than he should be. I don't have it, so I'm not backing it up with anything. So, like, the data looks right, but on the surface, it just feels weird.
Yeah, I think Cade as a pivot there is not a bad idea. Obviously, the role for Cade Cunningham is great. It's decent spot, great usage rate, primary ball handler, and pretty high ceiling. So I think he's interesting as a contrarian play. Right now, sub 10% ownership. Guys like Asar Thompson and Tobias Harris are getting about 10%. They're just like fine. Again, Pistons are still running a relatively deep rotation, so it's not super exciting. I did want to note this. I don't think it's going to mean anything, but at shoot around, Isaiah Stewart did have a starter's jersey on. Didn't see Jalen Duren there. My guess is just something like personal reasons for Jalen Duren as to why he wasn't there. But just wanted to mention it as like maybe an outside chance something weird happens with the Pistons. But yeah, I don't think I can really get to anyone else. Again, Detroit just still running a pretty deep rotation, like 10 guys pretty consistently.
Tyrese Maxey out.
Okay. Well, that is going to change some things for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit different. It was already sort of Joel Embiid season, but now I think it's more Joel Embiid season and a little bit of PG season. It might be Jared McCain season.
Yeah, Philly, I think, is going to be one of your best teams to get to now with Maxey out.
Well, that was going to be the game that we were about to talk about. I'm just going to reference it quickly to say Joel Embiid was 23% owned at 7,100. Paul George was 16% owned at 6,100. And we had 10% to Edgecombe. We'll skip this one for right now. Go to the other 7 o'clock game, which is Cleveland and Washington, which is not a great basketball game. Washington is dreadful. They're even more dreadful because they're missing 2 of their best players. We're getting 25% ownership to Darius Garland, 15 for Mobley, 15 for Mitchell. But we are getting some love for Justin Champagnie today, which is a conversation we'll get to. Then Bub Carrington, CJ McCollum, but no Sarr, no Chris Middleton here today. Let's start with these Cleveland guys. Their big 3 that's available since there is no Jared Allen, Garland, Mobley, Mitchell, all getting a little bit of love. I don't care which one of these guys I get. I'm happy to have one of them in everything that I do because that's how bad Washington is.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts as well. Like, I understand why Garland's getting the most ownership just because the price point, right? He's 6,400, Mobley's 8,700, Mitchell's 98. So definitely the easiest to get to Garland. Minutes have been solid for him recently, 33, 31, 29, 32. So you're probably expecting like low 30s minutes in a competitive game. That's a big if Washington keep it competitive. So yeah, he stands out as a good option in the mid-range. Ceiling's very high on both Mitchell and Mobley here. Again, love targeting players against Washington. Obviously, Mobley still going to be starting at the 5 there with Jared Allen out. He's gone for double-digit rebounds now in 5 of the last 6 games. So raises his ceiling a little bit. So I think all 3 of those guys are good options. Basically, no ownership to the rest of this team. Jalen Tyson all the way up to 6,100. Like, he's been playing really well, but that price feels right. DeAndre Hunter, I don't really know what's been going on with him because he started the year off really strong, but he's been an afterthought offensively. I know the prices come down, but probably can't go there. Lonzo Ball has really been struggling with his shot. He'll play like low 20s minutes off the bench, but I think there's better value on this slate. So all in all, yeah, I think it's mainly those top 3 guys, and all 3 look really good here against Washington.
It appears I've drawn a line in the sand with Cleveland in the same way that I did with Charlotte. I am 2xing Darius Garland. I am 2xing Evan Mobley, and I don't really have Donovan Mitchell. So for those of you listening right now, it appears Donovan Mitchell is going to have a massive day against the Washington Wizards because that's how this typically works. But I have a ton of Garland and a ton of Mobley, and I want to because Washington blows. It's really that simple. The problem now, so we kind of got to play some of Washington as well. Champagnie getting some love, which I hate. Bob Carrington getting a little bit of love. Do you want to try to grab pieces of this Washington team right now? Because there's like something here, maybe?
Yeah, so I'll start with Champagny. I totally agree with you. That ownership scares me a lot. I know last game he played 32 minutes, but yeah, like the minutes just do not have to be there. We do have Trey Johnson back. That's one more body in the rotation. And like for the most part, like when he gets to start, usually it's a spot start and he plays like low 20s minutes. And so, yeah, like the owner, it just scares me for Champagny. Like I think he's a fine value, but like if he's going to be in a quarter of the field's lineups, I'm okay just going way underweight to that. Bub Carrington, I think, is a little bit interesting, a little over 10% owned. So had a huge role last game, played 36 minutes, lost the last minute due to a blowout. Did have almost 70 passes made in that game and 10 potential assists. So if the game does stay competitive, I think Bub Carrington is a bit interesting as a somewhat contrarian value. Like I feel better about Bub Carrington at 13% than I do Champagny at 23%. So I would rather go the Carrington route.
Finally, I have 2x Carrington. I think that's the first time you were like, oh, no, this guy. Yeah. And well, I'm not like, by the way, I don't have any.
Yeah. But yeah, looking at the rest of the team, Trey Johnson in the first game back. I mean, he's playable because of the salary, but don't love it. CJ McCollum, Keyshawn George. These are two guys that in competitive games, Washington's been running it a bit tighter with their main guys in competitive games. But again, that is a big if this game can stay competitive. Like you saw 36 minutes for George in that game, 35 minutes from CJ. If the game does stay competitive, those two are probably going to need to have pretty big games. So I think they're playable in tournaments. The centers are basically getting no ownership. You did see Bagley get pulled kind of early last game. They extended Vucevic a bit, 27 minutes. But I do think that Bagley's a little bit interesting in tournaments. It's very scary. I don't have a ton of confidence in it, but he's sub 5K. We know Bagley's a pretty good point per minute player. If the game does stay competitive, I think 30 minutes is in the range of outcomes. So I think I have a little bit more interest in him than the current ownership. But that's probably it. Like, I'm not going to get to Whitmore. Like, they just do not want to play this guy. Probably not going to get to Will Riley either. So
I've got 8% of Bagley, so I'm at least holding hands with the field. Wouldn't mind having a little bit more there too on the off chance that Washington, like, there's going to be like 3 or 4 games this year where like Washington did what? Like, but I don't think today doesn't feel like it's that one. Ultimately, I'm just going to end up having so much Cleveland. Let's hit this super chat from Jordan Kenworthy. He said, I heavily favorite the Cavs in this game for a showdown. Smart. Considering not running any 3-3, all 4-2 and 5-1. Valid or too many plays on Washington to fade? So valid for sure. The problem in these scenarios is that guys have salaries. Like if CJ McCollum were 3K today, it wouldn't really make much of a difference if you thought the Cavs were going to win by 1, 10, or 40. He's just like a good play. So I do think there are situations where people want to go to like a structure of lineups, especially on the NBA side. I think it's a little bit different in football, but like on the NBA side, there's so many possessions and people are so involved that like you can get the shit kicked out of you and 2 of your guys are just really good plays on the ass beating team just because of whatever the hell their salaries just happen to be that day. So I wouldn't go crazy doing it. It wouldn't bother me at all to have a 3-3, but it stands to reason like 4-2 and 5-1 make the most sense. I guess though they will also be the most popular structure too.
I just looked at it. So I pulled it up in an optimizer for the show. I'm not playing the showdown, but actually a lot of the optimizers like 3-3. Even the top one is 4-2 Washington.
See, there you go.
Yeah, like you're getting like basically like the top 3 guys for Cleveland, and then like a lot of like Washington value is kind of like what like optimals are looking at right now for that slate.
Yeah, ours is Mitchell, Garland, Hunter, Mobley, Champagny, Vucevic. And I'm not surprised by that. And just looking at the top value options, Will Riley is 2nd, Trey Johnson is 3rd, Vucevic is 4th, Cam Whitmore is 5th, Justin Champagny is 6th. All the value just happens to be on the Wizards side. It's a good question, though. I appreciate that one. We don't talk about that all that much, Let's see. Do we have an update? I'm guessing we don't. Yeah. Why would we? Not going to put an update in right before the 5:30 injury report. Speaking of, Trey Johnson will have a minutes limit Friday.
Yep. So I'm not super surprised about that.
Yeah, no. That makes some sense to me, that's for sure. I can get off of this showdown page. All right, I'm going to kick the Philly game down the road a little bit more. So let's go to Utah and Memphis, a place that everybody wants to be. This is a tricky one, at least on the Memphis side. We'll start, though, on the Utah side. A little bit easier to talk about Utah. Standard issue Utah: Keontae George, C. Mikhailuk, Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, Yusuf Nurkic. They're not missing anybody surprising. This should just be kind of business as usual for Utah. I'm going to go ahead and sort that so it's slightly different because the Memphis side's important. 12% ownership to Walter Clayton, 12% ownership to Ace Bailey. Call it 12 for Keontae George and for Nurkic. Any of these pieces from Utah standing out? I'm interested in Ace Bailey, which is probably the first time I've said that out loud.
Yeah, I think Utah is a pretty interesting tournament team here. So I'll start with Nurkic. Right now, he's projecting for about 10% ownership. And there's been a ton of blowouts for Utah recently. Against Oklahoma City was a blowout. Against New York was a blowout. Against Houston was competitive, but he fouled out in 24 minutes. Against Houston again was a blowout. So there's been a ton of blowouts here recently for the Jazz. But in competitive games, we have seen Nurkic, usually play high 20s. And even, sometimes he can push for 30 minutes. On the season, Yusuf Nurkic is a 1.13 fantasy point per minute player. And you get a much better spot here with Edey off the court because he's been going up against Jock Landale. And yes, I like Nurkic a good amount here as a contrarian play. I think he's going overlooked. You mentioned Ace Bailey. I like him as well. I think the minutes are pretty secure for Ace Bailey. Those G League guys were not called up against. That was Hendricks and Cody Williams. And yeah, the price point's reasonable on Ace Bailey too. Only 4,600. He's someone also that is kind of blowout proof. Not saying this game's going to blow out, but he's a lot of times will come back in if the game does get out of hand. But over the last 5 games, 31, 28, 25, 34, 32 minutes. So I think he's a pretty solid point per dollar value. Walter Clayton Jr. looks to just be ahead right now of Collier. Collier over the last 4 games, 12, 15, 24 and a huge blowout, and then 6 minutes. And then Walter Clayton Jr., 21, 24, 19, and 29. So it looks like he is pretty clearly ahead of Collier. Only 3,500. I think a solid contrarian value play. So like him as well. And then didn't even mention Keontae George or Lauri Markkanen. They're coming in at reasonable price point, 7.6 for Keontae and 8K for Lauri Markkanen. This Memphis defense is not the same with Zach Edey off the court. And I think those two are reasonable plays as well. I think it's a bit tougher to make the argument for Kyle Filipowski. Again, we have seen some games out Kevin Love. There's been some blowouts, but this is a game that you would think would stay competitive. And he's usually someone I want to target when one of the centers are out, when you can play some backup 5. But Love, Nurkic both in, so I think it's tough to make the argument for him. But all in all, I think Utah is probably one of my favorite teams to get to for tournaments. I think they're going overlooked here.
I am currently 2xing Walter Clayton and Ace Bailey, so I'm very happy there. A little bit over the field on Keontae George as well. Don't have as much Nurkic, but we'll be talking through some center situations shortly. But yeah, I think this Utah side is a little underrepresented. They're most matchups they're going to look like shit. I don't think that this is one of them, and I think these guys' prices are a bit better than what we're seeing their ownership be. So I'm happy that you were speaking positively about Utah. Now we need to speak about Memphis because this is an actual talking point for today. One of the biggest, if not the biggest talking points of the day. So let's start with who's out. I'm just going to read off everybody since it's a big list. Brandon Clark, Gigi Jackson, Javon Small, John Conchar, Scottie Pippen, Ty Jerome, Zach Edey. Edey's been incredible. Ja is officially probable now. That was up in the air. Omax Prosper and Jemai Mashak, at least last I saw, were questionable. We'll see what happens. Actually, let me just refresh the injury report right now. Boop. Any changes to Utah? Or sorry, any changes to Memphis? Nope, still questionable. Okay. So we're expecting Ja Morant, Jalen Wells, Cedric Howard, Triple J, and back to the starting lineup. Jock Landale. Now that Zach Edey is not here, Jock Landale is 3,700, center only, and 60% owned. Now we have pretty sizable negative leverage on him, but I want to make sure that the point is seen here. Like, he's essentially the best play of the day. How do you want to manage Jock Landale?
Yeah, so we were talking about some other cheap centers earlier. This is what I was referencing to. Like, Jock Landale, I think it's really hard to get away from. We saw him to start the year when Zach Edey wasn't available. He would start and usually play around 25 minutes. On the season, Landale, 0.96 fantasy point per minute player. So, he just projects as your top value on the slate right now. And yes, the ownership is very high in him right now, projected for 60% ownership. But unless something weird happens, I think it's pretty hard to get away from him.
Yeah, I have 70 something, and I don't really anticipate that changing. It's just way too good of a value, and he's unlocking. I mentioned I have a ton of Giddey. I mentioned I have a ton of Jalen Johnson. Jock Landale plays a position that neither one of those guys plays, and that's helping to unlock things. Now, obviously, we're going to be getting some sort of additional Philly value that's going to move some of this stuff around a little bit, but ultimately, Jock Landale just looks pretty damn good today, and I don't really know what I could possibly do to avoid him in bulk. It's like, that's just way too good of a value. I mean, realistically, if he gets to 30 fantasy points, you're like, job well done. And that is not a big number at all. It's like he's basically a coin flip to hit 30.
Right.
And that's what you need. So it's not just him, though. Santi Aldama, 5,600, power forward, center eligible, 35% owned. Cedric Howard, 5,400, shooting guard eligible. He's 30% owned. And then there's no ownership coming into these guys. I have quite a bit of Coward at this moment. I don't have as much Santi Aldama. I am under the field a little bit there. How do you want to manage the rest of this Memphis team now? Sans Edey.
Yeah, so with John Morant back for this team, I do think the ownership is a little bit high on Coward, 5,400 right now. Again, a little over 30% ownership, but I understand why it's happening. His role's pretty secure. But if that ownership is going to hold, I think there's other guys in that range that maybe you look to at lower ownership. So yeah, he's fine, but I think going a bit over owned. You mentioned Aldama, 5,600. So when they're like fully healthy with the front court, the minutes were usually in the low 20s. But now you take out Zach Edey, you're going to get like some more small ball lineups for Memphis with either like Aldama or Jaren at the 5. And we know Aldama's a pretty good point per minute player too. Like on the year, he's about a 1 fantasy point per minute player. I think you're probably expecting like somewhere in that 26 to 28 minute range for Aldama. So totally reasonable play here in the mid range. I think for me, I would slightly prefer Aldama to Coward, but not by a wide margin. The rest of the team, as you mentioned, not getting much ownership. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been very disappointing this year. Price is sub 7K. I think he's playable in tournaments. You're probably expecting around 30 minutes from him in a competitive game. Jalen Wells getting a little bit less than 10% ownership. I think he's a fine contrarian value. Not a ton else to add there. If you need like a complete punt play, KCP's playable. He's probably going to be in that like 18 to 22 minute range right now. Stokastic's got him for 20 minutes. I think that makes sense. He's 3.3K, but yeah, I don't think I can get to Ja here. I expect them to be pretty cautious. He's been out for a while, obviously been very injury prone. So can't get to Ja yet, in my opinion.
I want to pay really close attention to whether or not Omax Prosper and or Jemai Mashak get ruled out. Because if they both get ruled out, they've got 9 bodies. And at that point in time, I feel a lot better about like KCP getting like 2 or 3 extra minutes, considering he can play with anybody. Vince Williams is sort of already priced up, so it's not really going to help him as much. But they're going to have to redistribute some like 10 minutes or so if we happen to lose those 2 guys. So I'm going to have my eye uniquely on that, because that news will pop up and it'll be like, Max Prosper is out, Jemai Mashak is out, and everybody's just going to be like, scroll right past it like they don't give a fuck. But in all actuality, they're out of bodies to give those minutes to, and they got to go to somewhere. Could that create a situation where we get like 32 minutes out of all of the starters for the Grizzlies, like we never, ever, ever do? Maybe. I don't know. I'm intrigued by these guys. I'm intrigued by this entire game in ways that like aren't the ownership that's coming in. Like it goes long beyond the Jock Landales of the world today. Isaac Okoro will be limited to 20 minutes per Billy Donovan. Trey Jones will be limited to 24.
Okay, that's kind of what we expected.
Yeah, not all that surprising right now. So we have one additional game on the DraftKings slate right now. That's going to be Brooklyn and Dallas. And again, at some point in time, we will work our way back to the Philly game and the news of Tyrese Maxey being out. Before we get to any of it, though, oh shit. It is at this moment that I realize that I'm on the NHL strategy show overlay. Now it's gone. Now it's back.
I didn't even realize
we
that
good.
either, so.
I sure as hell didn't notice it. But I did now, as I'm trying to tell you guys to do this. Download the Tails app, folks. I mentioned it this morning. I'm going to mention it again. If you had downloaded the Tails app yesterday and were perusing it and you were like, oh, what's Josh up to? One, you would have got a prize picks card that went 5-0. We would have had the chance at 6-0, but unfortunately, Time Lord didn't play. But 5-0 will work. That's a 10x card if you followed it. And if you were playing on the FanDuel touchdown jackpot yesterday, you would have been given the first touchdown in that game. And you would have $200 and something in bonus bets courtesy of FanDuel. And that's just from me. That doesn't say anything about DK or Laffy or Ben or Lindy or Eric and countless more. And you can follow all of these guys and get anything they post on their free accounts. And it's just going to be there at your fingertips. Push notifications as well. Maybe you're tailing someone for a while. You really like what they're doing. You're making some money and you want to subscribe to them directly, like DK. You can do that. But you can download Tails and it doesn't have to cost you anything if you don't want it to. I think eventually you're going to find some people that you want to throw your shekels their way, DK in particular. Download the app in the App Store. The link is in the description. And if you do, it would help us out tremendously to leave a rating and a review. We don't ask for a ton around these parts. It's mostly just likes. But in this case, it's more than likes. It's ratings and reviews. Brooklyn and Dallas. Michael Porter Jr., small forward eligible, 8,300, just shy of 30% owned. Anthony Davis, 9,500, power forward only, about 10% owned. Brooklyn's basically themselves for today, now that Michael Porter Jr. is in. Cooper Flagg is available. D'Angelo Russell is questionable. Daniel Gafford is doubtful. Derek Lively, done for the year. Not a lot of ownership coming into this game. 221 total is not all that surprising to see this lack of ownership. It looks like an awful spot. I do like Michael Porter Jr. I don't know if I like anything else. How do you want to handle this entire game?
Yeah, so starting on the Brooklyn side, as you mentioned, there's really not much ownership outside of Michael Porter Jr. A little bit less than 30% ownership. He is the guy leading the way here without Cam Thomas, has a 31% usage rate. In competitive games, we've seen him pretty consistently play like mid-30s minutes, and he's coming at a reasonable price point here at 8.3. So I like the ceiling on MPJ. Don't have a ton else to add. I understand why he's getting ownership. The rest of this team is not getting much ownership. Nick Claxton next in line, a little bit less than 10%. Obviously, a little bit of risk of foul trouble against Anthony Davis, but I do think if he can stay on the court, like you could certainly see 35 minutes from Claxton. We have seen in competitive games they lean on those two a bit. So a reasonable contrarian center play. I think if we're talking like contrarian centers in the slate, though, there's probably a couple other ones I'd rather get to. Nurkic specifically. No other ownership come to the rest of this team. The minutes down a bit on Danny Wolf. You do have they're pretty healthy here. Day'Ron Sharp 3,600 as a contrarian value is playable. Obviously, good point per minute. If something happens to Claxton, like foul trouble or blowout, then obviously Day'Ron Sharp benefits. But I think it's pretty hard to get to guys like Clowney or Yegor or Terrence Mann. I just think there's better value on this slate, and so I'm probably not going to mess with the Nets value.
I basically have nothing here outside of MPJ. I could absolutely see AD going bonkers, but I have very minimal pieces of this at this point. And I don't even really know, like, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. Like for an 8:30 game, for this being the 8:30 game, the last game of the DraftKings slate, it's going to serve like no purpose to me for late swaps. I don't, other like MPJ is just always interesting to me, but like I don't want to pay $7,000 for Cooper Flag today. Like that's what he should be priced. I don't want to pay $6,800 for PJ Washington. I mean, I love the positionality, but
yeah,
like
I think
Claxton. No, I don't know.
the Dallas side's just like, yeah, you can like play this guy, you can play that guy. Obviously, I think Anthony Davis would be the preferred option. I don't think you're going to see like huge minutes from him, but probably around 30. He's 9,500. Still makes him in play though. Really good point per minute player, obviously on the season, 1.46. So he's definitely playable. The rest of the rotation, like PJ Washington's a fine filler option, but I'm really not going to go out of my way to play him. The guards kind of hard to figure out this rotation with like Nembhard and Brandon Williams. I guess like Nembhard is playable at 4,800, but don't feel super confident in his role either. So it's a lot of just like secondary guys. Like, yeah, you can play this guy, but there's no one I'm like really excited to get to on Dallas.
Our projections were last updated at 541.
Okay.
I am waiting right now to see the ownership hit so that we could take a look at the changes that we're getting. And the one game that we haven't talked about yet that exists on the DraftKings slate, which is the Indiana Pacers and the Philadelphia 76ers. We have kicked this one to the end for those of you that are just getting here, because while we were on the show, Tyrese Maxey was ruled out. And that's got some pretty big trickle-down effects. We've got a almost 6x Joel Embiid at 7,100. We've got an almost 6x VJ Edgecombe at 5,800. We've got an almost 6x Paul George at 6,100. Then we get to Jared McCain at 4,100. We've given him 26 minutes. He's point guard, shooting guard eligible. And there's the ownership. How does 50% Joel Embiid sound? How does 40% VJ Edgecombe sound? How does 40% Paul George sound? 30 to Quentin Grimes. 11 to Jared McCain. Everybody else is either 5% or less. The floor is yours for Philly. I know you're seeing this for the first time. I guess, how did you feel about Joel Embiid before? How do you feel about him now?
Yeah, so I already had interest in Embiid before the Maxey news. The minutes have been pretty solid for him. Like 2 of the last 3 games, he played 30 minutes. I know that game at 11:30 was an overtime game, but minutes have been solid. I love targeting bigs against this Pacers front court, whether it be Jay Huff or Isaiah Jackson, or if they try to go Tony Bradley. Like, it's just a great spot for Embiid. And price points come down to, like you said, 7,100. So he right now is getting the most ownership, around 50%. And I agree. I think it's actually pretty hard to get away from Embiid. Ceiling is very high here. Again, you take out a guy like Maxey, who kind of was doing everything for the team, playing huge minutes. It's a ton of usage to go around. Obviously, it's not a super big sample size. I was looking without Tyrese Maxey because he plays like 40 plus minutes a night. So not really going to go to in the numbers with Maxey off the court because it's very, very small.
Yeah, you get 8 extra minutes every day, and that's it.
Exactly.
It never builds up.
Right. So, but yeah, so Embiid starting looks amazing. Love the matchup for him. Totally understand why the ownership's there. Next, you got Paul George and VJ Edgecombe, both around 40%. Think that makes sense. Paul George minutes have been steadily rising. So 30 and 32 minutes over the last couple games is good to see. He's going to have a much bigger role here without Maxey. Again, he's only 6,100. Edgecombe minutes have also been ticking up. He played 38 minutes last game. So clearly there's no longer a limit on VJ Edgecombe. And with Maxey out, I think his minutes are very secure. So he looks like a really good point power play in the mid-range. Quentin Grimes and Jared McCain, I think, are going to get the biggest minutes bump without Tyrese Maxey. So, expecting Grimes to start, but I think, again, McCain going to get a nice minutes bump off the bench. both those guys look like really good point per hour plays as well. Grimes coming in at 6,200, does have guard forward eligibility. McCain at 4,100. So right now, McCain actually not getting a ton of ownership, which I think is a little bit interesting. He's only getting about 10%. I think, I'd like to be overweight to that if that holds. And yeah, like I'm not gonna get to anyone else though, like Barlow or like Edwards, Walker. I don't think it's necessary. Drummond will back up Embiid, but like price point's way too high on him. But yeah, so like Embiid, George, Edgecombe, Grimes, and McCain are 5 great plays. With Grimes, Edgecombe, George, and Embiid being extremely high owned.
I already had 25% of George and 25% of Embiid before this happened. I don't expect any of that to really go away. I wouldn't be shocked if Edgecombe is the guy that I mildly get away from, but it might just be too many minutes when I look at the projections and he's there by default. I think McCain's the most interesting piece here because, one, we have no idea how much they're going to play him. He can get way less than we ever expect, and I wouldn't be shocked. He can get way more than I expect, and that wouldn't shock me either. 4,100 MPE, so he's point guard, shooting guard eligible, just 10% owned. Like, think about some of the guys that we talked about that were getting ownership earlier. I mean, I'll clear this out right now and look at it. Obviously we expect KJ Simpson to play quite a bit more minutes than him, but 4-1 in ownership, it's a pretty big gap. Champagne's fallen quite a bit now, so he's right there with him. I think if that number would have been high still, I would have been like, well, I definitely like Jared McCain more than Champagne, but now that that's down, I think that makes a little bit more sense. I guess, the Landale ownership hasn't gone anywhere, not that we would expect it. You're going to be looking at that Landale-Embiid combo in cash. I could pretty much guarantee that.
Yeah.
Actually, I guess we could look at it.
Someone asked about who's going to be the primary ball handler for Philly with Maxey off the court. It's going to be Quentin Grimes and Paul George. And then McCain will be like that bench guard that will handle some playmaking as well. But if you just look at like potential assists over the last 5 games, obviously Maxey led the team 12.6. Next was 8.5 for Quentin Grimes per game. And then Paul George is 7.5. So expecting those two to be your primary playmakers, Grimes and Paul George.
Fascinating game now, man. Do you have any interest in Indy? I guess we should have that conversation. They are full stop unowned. 4.5% to Andrew Nembhard is the high mark. I certainly don't mind having some pieces if I'm going to have that much Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think Nembhard is kind of interesting here. So over the last 3 games, you have not seen any overlap with him and TJ McConnell. And I think that raises the ceiling a bit on Nembhard. The assist percentage goes from about like 34% to almost 39% with McConnell off the court. And yeah, like the minutes have just really not been there for McConnell recently. He had that one game, it was like four games ago where he played 6 minutes and that was it. And like Carlisle was like, oh, like he just didn't look right. But the last 2 games for him, 17, 14, and 16, again, 0 overlap with Nembhard. So if that's going to hold, I think Nembhard is kind of interesting here. 12 assists last game, 7 each in the previous 2 games. So yeah, I think he's an interesting contrarian option here for the Pacers. So the price point's not amazing at 6,600, but I think if I had to play someone on Indiana, it would be him. No ownership to the rest of this team. I know I mentioned McConnell. It's just the minutes are the issue. He is a really good point per minute player, and who knows? Maybe they go back to overlapping today, and McConnell plays over 20 minutes, but we haven't seen that recently. Mathurin and Siakam really the other 2 main guys in this offense. Usage wise, you're going to get a ton of shots up for Mathurin. Siakam's a guy that can do a little bit of everything, but price points are just tougher to get to. 7,200 for Mathurin, 9,100 for Siakam. If I had to play one of those 2, it probably would be Mathurin, but still tough to go there. I don't love targeting centers against Embiid. There's some foul risk for Jay Huff. His price point's all the way up to 5,700. So yeah, I don't love that. I mean, I guess Isaiah Jackson at 4K at no ownership, like we do get the scenario where Jay Huff picks up 2 quick ones. It's Isaiah Jackson coming in, but all in all, yeah, I don't love this team. I think you're going to see Ethan Thompson get the start again here, but there's better value on the slate than going to 4,200 Ethan Thompson. So definitely one of the least appealing teams on the slate.
For everybody curious, here is a look at the current ownership status on FanDuel for right now, which also includes the late game. Brandon Miller is your highest owned guy on FanDuel, 6,500, shooting guard, small forward eligible, basically 50% owned. Then you get to the pack of Philly, Edgecombe, Embiid, George, and Grimes, about 45, 40, 35, and 35 across the board. Santi Aldama is in the 30s, and then we get into a pretty sizable pack of guys in the 20s. But the overwhelming chalk on the FanDuel end right now, Brandon Miller and 4 dudes from the Sixers, thanks to Tyrese Maxey being out. Whew. What a weird one. And for those that don't know, in the late game tonight, let me highlight this on FanDuel, because there was some news earlier today for one of these teams. That would be the Minnesota Timberwolves. No Anthony Edwards tonight. So we're getting 25% ownership to Randall, DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, pretty much Jaden McDaniels. Minimal ownership coming in general to the Warriors. And I couldn't play a Warrior today if you paid for my entries. Steph's back. And if you think you can figure out no Horford, no Draymond, if you think you know the dudes that are playing in those minutes today, good luck. I started projecting it. I went through the whole rotation. I looked up and I was like, that's fucking 260 something minutes. Like, what? Where are these guys going? And that was without Kuminga. I was like, somebody's got to stop playing. Eventually, one of these guys has to be like 6'6", right? Because they can't all just be point guards. I don't know what to do with Golden State.
Yeah. Golden State, I think is hard to get to, but yeah, Minnesota on the FanDuel side. I mean, you're gonna have to have some interest in this team for sure. You take out your highest usage player in Anthony Edwards, and there's a lot of usage to go around. Also, no Mike Conley. So my guess is, I know we're talking about this a little bit before the stream. It's probably gonna be either Terrence Shannon or Jalen Clark to pick up the start. If it's Terrence Shannon, I would have a lot more interest in him. Just a better point per minute player than Jalen Clark. So I think he would be interesting if he does get the start there. But looking at the numbers with Anthony Edwards off the court, you got about a 30% usage rate for Julius Randle. He's also got about a 26% assist percentage. So they're going to run a bit more offense through Julius Randle. You're going to get a bit more ball handling for a guy like Dante DiVincenzo. Naz Reid's minutes have been up. And we know Naz Reid's a pretty good point per minute player. So this is a team I think you're going to have some interest in for sure. I think Randall probably the preferred option, but Naz, DiVincenzo, I didn't mention McDaniels. He's going to have a bit of a bigger role. And then keep an eye on that starting lineup of who they go to. Most likely will be one of Shannon or Jalen Clark.
Checking to see if we have any questions in Discord right now. I don't see any. Chris Ostro, any love for Bones Highland? On FanDuel, like, not really. It doesn't seem super necessary. I do think, I don't know if you said it or not, he seems to be ahead of Rob Dillingham. And so, like, if I'm picking between little guards on the Wolves, it's Bones Highland for sure. If we're talking about for the slate, I just don't think it matters.
Yeah, I think it's tough unless they do something surprising and start him, but I don't think they would.
Right.
And so, yeah, on the FanDuel slate, I think it's still tough to get to him. But if you're playing like the showdown slate, like the DraftKings showdown or something, like for sure, Bones Highland in play because he's been ahead of Rob Dillingham, as you mentioned. And yeah, so I think you're probably expecting like mid-teens minutes or so for Bones off the bench with the possibility of playing a little bit more. So definitely in play on a showdown slate.
Yeah, keep an eye on that starting lineup. That will matter more. But yes, for showdown, he's an interesting name to pay attention to, that's for sure. What a hell of a slate we've got in front of us for today. We've got a couple more minutes to go before we turn this one over to Live Before Lock with Greg and Spags. So 55% ownership to Jock Landale, 50 for Embiid. We've got KJ Simpson, VJ Edgecombe, and Paul George, all 40 or above. Which one of those 5 guys do you hate the most?
I think we're going to be on the same one. I think if I had to fade one of those 5, it would be VJ Edgecombe. But it probably would be him or Simpson. But yeah, they're all getting ownership for a reason. I don't think like any of this is bad chalk. But yeah, if I had to fade one, it probably would be one of those 2.
Yeah, I just don't see it being Landale or Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
Positionally and price-wise, Paul George just makes sense. I kind of feel the same way about KJ Simpson, but like
Mm-hmm.
VJ Edgecombe, look, he's going to get all the opportunity in the world, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But he's still just a young guard that I don't think is very good right now.
It does make for
look.
Sorry, I didn't mean
It's
to
not
cut
like
you
Indy's
off.
not going to make their lives hard. Like those guys are going to be in his shit the entire time. They're like they
Right.
might not be any good right now, but they're still a pain in the ass.
Right. Yeah, totally agree with that. I was just going to mention that like it does make for an interesting scenario here because I feel like most lineups are going to have both Landale and Embiid. So
Yeah.
A lot of the other center ownership's going to decrease a ton. And so, like I said, like there's some interesting contrarian centers on the slate, but I think for the most part, like a lot of the field is going to have that combo of Embiid and Landale.
I think more than anything on the Edgecombe piece is just I want to keep an eye on that McCain ownership because if that really is that big of a gap between those two, it's not crazy if VJ Edgecombe just plays 31 minutes today and McCain gets a couple extra. We know he can shoot, whether or not that's been happening so far this season or not. Like that is it. That's the only skill that he has. If that doesn't stick around, he's gone. So like if he just gets a couple extra minutes, I don't think that that's crazy. And if these guys are going to be 40-10 in ownership, like I'm intrigued by that. That said, VJ Edgecombe looks like an exceptional play today because he's going to be projected for massive minutes. You can see it on the screen right now. It's projected for 37. So
yeah, like we saw
not much you could do with that.
We saw him early in the season. I mean, he was a guy pretty consistently playing like 40 minutes a night. And you take out Maxey, it's like minutes have to go somewhere. So like I would not be surprised at all if you saw 40 plus minutes from Edgecombe. Like I was just looking to start the season.
That's the scary part of like not liking him. The fact that he might just play 40 minutes today. And it's like, well, fuck, I can't have like now he's good by default.
Right. Like I was looking to start the season. He played 42, 40, 39, 40, and 40 minutes his first 5 games.
I really hope he doesn't get that today because I don't think I'm going to have him and that's going to suck. But the good news is I've got an hour to try to figure this out before we start getting into this slate. You guys also have an hour to go. Before we get to live before lock, you guys know what I'm going to say. DK, tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me over on Tails right now doing content for daily fantasy sports. I do streams every day before lock. As well as for player props. So that's prize picks, underdog, sportsbook stuff. So
it's all right here, folks. I already told you to download Tails earlier. I'm also telling you to follow DK once you get there. It is time, everybody. We have reached essentially the top of the hour. I'm rounding up. It is 6 p.m. Greg Ehrenberg, Chris Spags. It is time for you guys to take everybody to 7 p.m.
There's nobody more important to have on the show than the resident Quentin Grimes expert, Chris Spags today. Chris Spags, who dating back to last year, he's been the Quentin Grimes guy, and we actually get a slate where his expertise is going to be necessary with Tyrese Maxey out. So big one here for Spags. This is why we keep him on the roster, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. DK, Josh, have a good weekend, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right, now a little bit of time just to us with them gone. This is important here, but yeah, Spags. I in general, obviously, this is just the most important talking point of the entire slate. Tyrese Maxey ruled out earlier in the day. Now, as well, downgrade to questionable. Presumably was going to be out. Then was officially ruled out about an hour ago or so. So now we've got this situation with the Philadelphia 76ers where Maxey has unquestionably been their best player this year. All kinds of playing time and usage opens up. Paul George, his minutes have been at 30 plus. Joel Embiid still dealing with somewhat of a minutes restriction, although to be honest, for all we know, this could just be the permanent minutes Joel Embiid plays for the rest of his career. But I do want to know, what is it that you are going to be prioritizing from the 76ers sans Tyrese Maxey tonight?
Yeah, the great irony is that I do have Quentin Grimes well projected. I mean, I'm right in line with Stokastic. Nothing too crazy in my Grimes projection today. About a 34 fantasy point projection for Grimes. I'm getting him in 21% of my lineups right now. I'm going to try to rerun stuff, but that is technically under the field. A little bit under on Joel Embiid as well. Actually, a good amount under, getting him in 25% of the fields at 50. But I'm getting a ton of Paul George, getting a ton of EJ Edgecombe. I mean, these guys, all three of them, and Embiid too. Like, I think you're poo-pooing Embiid's minutes. He played 30 last game, which I kind of thought at this point was a number where his knees might just actually literally explode, spread shards into the first row of a game. But no, he played 30 minutes and held in there. I think these guys are all going to play a ton. And, last game with Maxey out, you had Edgecombe still playing 38 minutes, Paul George playing 32, Embiid playing 30, Grimes playing 29. Those guys, the same people that are out, still out. And then you also are adding Maxey onto that. So I think really whatever Sixer you want to get, you can get to. I would favor the cheaper guys, but where are you landing? Is Quentin Grimes your preferred one? Can we shift it back to you?
So on the Embiid 30 minutes, I more so mean that I think this is kind of where he's capped. Like we're only a couple years removed from him averaging 35 minutes per game. And I wouldn't be surprised if what he averaged 2 years ago, he just never plays again in his entire career, at least not regularly, maybe like on off occasion here or there. But I do have a recent run of Sims up for myself. And my most rostered player from the 76ers and my most rostered player overall on the slate, it is the aforementioned Joel Embiid spag. So you take Tyrese Maxey off the court. Also, over to tails, I posted earlier in the day a same game parlay. It was over on points for Joel Embiid, over on points for Paul George, and then over on assists for Quentin Grimes. The idea being that I didn't think Maxey was going to play, and all those lines were going to end up moving. So I do like all of these guys, Joel Embiid included. But even if Joel Embiid isn't going to be a guy who ever plays 35 minutes again, he is priced at $7,100 on DraftKings. That is an absurd salary for Joel Embiid. He is somebody who, I'm trying to remember the price tags we would see on him. Even last year when he was somewhat limited, he was still somebody we would see in like the 9 to 10K range. So he's priced down so aggressively that it's really hard for me to get away from him. And then over on FanDuel, when it comes to Joel Embiid, the one thing that you do have to consider is that you can only roster one center, but still he's 7K flat over on FanDuel. Just this kind of price point and what his usage has looked like this year in the absence of Tyrese Maxey. It's, he's a 35% usage guy with Maxey off the court this year. I think Joel Embiid is the best overall play on the slate.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, the field's ownership is there. I never want to poo-poo the field being at, half their exposure going to Joel Embiid. And I think it's 7,100. You go in the center spot as well, as the deeper dive guys pointed out. You go against Indianapolis, definitely one of the better matchups you'll find for anybody, but especially, a center like Embiid, who could definitely bruise, huff, can make Isaiah Jackson get in foul trouble. Like, I get it. I think there are guys that are playable on the slate around him. Like, I'm not getting a lot of Evan Mobley, but him against Washington, the big benefiting from the peripherals there being a little bit higher in a pace-up spot against the bad defense with no Jared Allen. Like, I think you make the case for him. Jalen Duren, I think, is also a pretty credible play. He's a player I'm getting a lot more of relative to the field's ownership, and that's part of why I'm getting less Embiid. I think that's really my critique of Embiid, is that there are guys around him who I think project as well, if not maybe slightly better. But I get it. If we're getting back at old school Embiid, and he's looked the most like old school Embiid this year, especially compared to last year, I think he's probably going to come close enough to paying off. But if one of my center spots is going to Landale, do I always want the other one to go to Embiid and be holding hands with that kind of chalky construction?
Yeah. So by the way, I see you guys' question in the chat. I'm going to address that in a second as well. So Joel Embiid, certainly number one for me. I want to work through some of the other guys on Philly as well here, Spags, which for me, you've got Edgecombe and Paul George. I view them as the second and like the 2A and the 2B. Like, I view them very equally as the next best options from Philly. Your guy, Quentin Grimes, for sure a boost for him in the absence of Tyrese Maxey. I just think he's priced and owned in a way where he's a little bit harder for me to get to. I would rather play Edgecombe and Paul George than Quentin Grimes, but I do have a pivot play. You could play Jared McCain $2,100 less than Quentin Grimes and a third of the ownership. Of all of the lower owned guys on Philly, McCain is the one who I think stands to benefit the most at low ownership in the absence of Maxey. And I think that he's a good pivot off of Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, to me, I think the way that I'm viewing Grimes is, and it comes down to like, his rates this year, not nearly as high. Honestly, it's still pretty good though. He's had a 30% usage rate and a 25.5% assist rate, 1.2 fantasy points minute this year without Maxey and Oubre on the court, but it's not enough possession. It's only 150 for Grimes this year without those guys. But like, I don't think Grimes this year is the same guy as last year, where he had like the full run of the castle. There was nobody else left who was like a legit NBA player. He was getting up 30% usage, 35% assist rate every game, getting some rebounds too. I don't think he's that guy in the situation. So I'm with you that moving away from him is logical. I definitely think that Edgecombe, though, and George are like the big winners here. McCain, will get more opportunity. There's a lot of guard minutes to go around. But if I had to choose between Grimes and McCain, even relative to price and ownership, I would still take the shot on Grimes. But I don't think you're wrong. I just think to me, it's like, it really is to choose your own adventure. I'm choosing George and Edgecombe, and it seems like you're definitely team Embiid and I guess maybe team McCain. Do you want to be team McCain?
Yeah, so it's relative to ownership. Like people in chat are saying, who's sleeping on Jared McCain? I mean, he's 11% owned. You look at here's the ownership on the guys on Philly that we've got right now. We've got 51% Joel Embiid, 40% ownership to Edgecombe and George, 30% ownership to Grimes, 11% ownership to McCain. Nobody else on the team is owned. And I don't know about you. I don't really have interest in anybody other than the team outside of these handful of guys. You've got, to me, these are all the playable guys from Philly. But for the people in chat are saying who's sleeping on McCain, he's 11% owned. Of all the guys who are viable today from the 76ers, he's the only one who's not pulling ownership.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think just based on general, Greg always being as sharp as you are about game theory stuff, like when you see all the ownership flocking to a bunch of other guys and you have one guy who has previously put up, pretty good usage when there was vacated guard minutes. I mean, McCain's biggest minutes last year before he got hurt were Maxey being banged up a lot. So I don't think that's a crazy thing. I'm going to be a chalk donkey for the guys that I think are going to be locked into, 30, 35 minutes. But McCain, certainly he's shown he could be that old guy or, the guy from last year, at least once or twice this season. And the fantasy points per minute are coming up. He's up to 0.8 now. Still seems like he's due for positive regression in terms of his true shooting. So I think McCain, you can make that case, and he is your lowest owned option out of the group.
Yeah. And like, if you're trying to figure out how to get different with Philly, I don't even think there's another answer. It's just him. The answer is either McCain or not playing the Philly guys to be different, unless you're seeing somebody way off the board from the 76ers you're looking to get to. Like nobody else just projects that well. Yeah,
Barlow, even with the bigs out, I feel like he never got there, so he wouldn't be the one. And nobody else really projects for enough minutes. Nobody else. I mean, and there's so much usage going to your top four guys. I mean, at least the top three with Embiid, George, Edgecombe, and I would say Grimes too. There's not a lot to go around, but there's a lot for those four guys, assuming that they don't get blown out.
All right, so let me help some people out here. We've got a super chat related to the entry manager. All right, so we are redesigning the site, and here is what you want to do. If it's saying to you to log in, on the top right of the Sims, just log out and then log back in, and you should be good. I had to do that. My first run is just press that log out button, then log back in, and it's been going fine for me without any issues. But let me know, you guys, if that has not been the case for you. But once you're already logged in on the site, just when you go to the Sims for the first time, just log out, log in on the top right-hand corner of the Sims page, and you should be set if you go ahead and do that. Let's see. Were there any other super chats? No, that one was from the last show there. And then also, I think people in chat expect McCain to be really chalky today. We'll see what changes with his ownership as we come out. But something else, too, McCain is in all likelihood coming off the bench today. I think that's something that you guys should also be aware of. Also, if people are wondering about the boom bust, we have it all in the data hub now so that it's all included on one page. So you see here, boom, bust, ceiling, floor. It's just all condensed. So you guys don't have to go to a million different pages. It's all on this one page now, the boom bust data. But are you expecting McCain to come off the bench? Because I certainly am.
Yeah, I mean, I think that seems like the assumption I would have, and that's what the data is giving me too. So that's where I'm assuming it would be at. Yeah, but still getting mid-20s minutes. So I think it's an inhibitor for him getting run. As we talked about already, you had Maxey in last game, and all the key guys for the Sixers were getting pretty good amounts of run relative to what they've had so far this year. So a little bit more for McCain, a little bit more for Quentin Grimes. I think no matter what the starting configuration is, those guys just kind of have to get more.
Yeah. So when it comes to McKinney, maybe people in chat are expecting him to start, but I think it's going to be Grimes who starts in place of Maxey. That's my expectation. And if people are wondering who the other starter is, they usually start Dominic Barlow in the front court too. Let's see if we had any questions in Discord. We do. We've got a couple questions here. First one here is from Coach DFS. He wants to know, what is the chalk I want to avoid today? To be honest, none of them. If we're looking at the most rostered players on the slate, Jock Landale, Joel Embiid, KJ Simpson, VJ Edgecombe, Paul George, those are all the guys 40+% owned. I'm not looking to fade any of those guys, Spags. I don't know about you.
No, I think I feel good about them. I don't think they're like lock button kind of guys. Like sometimes you might view, backup center X who produces over 1 fantasy point per minute kind of stuff. Filling in for a starter. Like I think Landale's maybe as close to that as you get, but he's not minimum salary. So like, I think you make the case that there are some good lineups without him. But he's getting, to the majority of mine. I think the amount that I get in final amounts, probably max 66%, but like at least 50, I think is where I'll land with Landale.
So then I guess the other part of this too is there anybody who is not pulling much ownership that maybe you think should be much more popular than what they are?
I would say for me, I mean, the one that stands out the most in my exposures up through now, which I'll probably rerun during the show, but I'm getting Duren at 5x the field. 7,800. Do you think he's a very live pivot to Embiid? And I do have Duren's projection being a little bit high. I heard DK mention on the last show that there's something with Duren not being at shoot around and Isaiah Stewart in a starter jersey. So I'm hoping at this point, we haven't got anything weird come out. So I'm hoping Duren's okay. But the fact he's going against Atlanta, obviously Porzingis and Okongwu, neither guy going to really defend a guy like Duren from doing what he does best, grabbing boards, running at the rim and all of that. But Porzingis being out, I think does make it a little bit of an easier matchup for Duren too. And just a single-digit ownership for a guy who I have projected to be a little bit better than Embiid today, projection-wise, which might be a hot take. Duren is the one that stands out the most to me at center.
Okay. All right. And let's see, our guy, Young Metro Boomin, he's got the normal FanDuel question for us. He wants to know who are the best plays on FanDuel at each position. And then he says, please and thank you. Absolutely. I'll look at the FanDuel lineups that I have built out. And I will start here by looking at the point guard position. FanDuel is very, very different from DraftKings today because FanDuel has included the late game where Anthony Edwards is out. So definitely changes some of the equation there. So for me at point guard, Spags, relative to ownership here, I like Steph Curry as a contrarian play on FanDuel, only 14% owned. That's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, Steph Curry definitely stands out. I like Kobe White on both sites today. I think that people have kind of been sleeping on how well he's played this year, and he is shooting guard and point guard on FanDuel. So I'd say Kobe White. I like the chalk too on FanDuel, like KJ Simpson. I think is good chalk on both sites.
All right. And now, by the way, Zach also left the super chat here asking for top plays on FanDuel. So killing two birds with one stone, answering the same question here. At shooting guard for me, that's VJ Edgecombe on FanDuel.
Yeah, I would also go Edgecombe. I mean, a lot of guys with positional overlap here, but Edgecombe, Grimes, I'll save one of the small forwards for small forward.
Small forward, that one will be Brandon Miller for me.
Also, Brandon Miller for me. That was the one. I think he's good at shooting guard as well. But small forward, I mean, he and Edgecombe both very playable there. And again, a lot of guys with dual positionality. Paul George playable at small forward, but I will pick him for power forward if you want to transition there.
All right. Yeah, I was going to go Paul George at power forward, but I'll just give out a different guy in the interest of having somebody else who I like a lot for the FanDuel slate. Not available on the DraftKings slate, but Julius Randle in the absence of Anthony Edwards today. I think he's another really strong power forward option. The only thing that kind of limits the amount that he shows up in lineups, which, by the way, is still a ton of the FanDuel lineups I've built out, is that he only has power forward eligibility. The way FanDuel gives almost everybody MPE, like if you look at your exposures in the Sims, you'll see every single player is available at multiple positions, but Julius Randle, power forward only, and I think maybe even the only player on the entire FanDuel slate today that only has power forward eligibility. So him only being available in 2 lineup spots as opposed to 4 or 3 like a lot of other players are, that keeps him to 24% ownership, which is a really modest number for Julius Randle, sans Anthony Edwards, and then center, that's Embiid.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's interesting about Randle. But yeah, good call on that. For center, I think Aldama, kind of interesting if you are not going to go with an Embiid or paying down for Landale. But I think really, center here, not as crazy about Duren. He's a little bit low on too, so I'll throw Duren in the mix.
The next question is for Mike. Mike1377 wants to know, who are we boosting on DraftKings for today? So, I mean, we don't have news that we're waiting on now as far as like in or outs go. There's nobody important left as questionable. You got like fringe guys like D'Angelo Russell, but he doesn't really matter. So, I might toy around a little bit with things as we get close to lock, but very often when I'm utilizing the boost, it's primarily because I'm trying to situate my lineups for injury situations. For today, Spags, I'm probably just gonna end up playing whatever shows up in the Sims, and then I'll be late swapping as the slate goes to account for any kind of like live scoring, or if maybe there's an unexpected starting lineup. With that said, there's still only 2 games post lock on DraftKings, 3 games over on FanDuel. So for me, I don't think there's anything I'm going to be aggressively boosting or down boosting. How about for yourself?
No, I feel like most of the stuff that I get, I naturally get, boosted because of having projections on a player being a little bit higher. So, nothing really that crazy for me. I mean, I didn't really touch any numbers. I just I'm pretty cool with the sim exposures I got. Again, didn't really feel like I got too overexposed to anybody. And usually for me, if I feel good about the number range, I don't tweak things just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. So one thing that I do think is worth doing now that we've added it to the Sims is some of the groups. So here's one thing that I do think makes a little bit of sense is for the 76ers, before we were talking about Quentin Grimes, we were talking about Jared McCain. I do think there's a little bit of negative correlation between Grimes and McCain. So I don't mind making a group of McCain and Grimes and then giving that a little bit of a negative boost. So there aren't too many lineups that show up with Grimes and McCain in them together. But other than that, nothing really too specific for me here, Mike. We've also got J-Rock wants to know, running any uniques for today. Yeah, there's pretty condensed chalk. I'll probably put it on 2 uniques. 3 is a little bit aggressive for NBA. Is that something you're playing around with at all for today, Spags?
I actually didn't feel like I had to up uniques because I wasn't too overexposed to anybody. So, for me, I will do that if I feel like I'm getting too much of guys, in particular, the ones that my data is a little bit off market on, usually in favor of a guy. I'll try to then spread the uniques out more so I get less. But today that wasn't an issue for me. I feel like everything's kind of pretty balanced in terms of how I'm viewing it.
Justin Kelly wants to know, why would you have to make groups? You don't have to do anything. It's just kind of your own discretion. Like, you don't have to change player projections. You don't have to do ROI boosts. You don't have to do anything. It's just up to your own discretion of what it is that you want to do for a specific slate, or maybe certain players that like you think might be positively or negatively correlated in a certain kind of way. You absolutely don't have to. But that's something that I'm going to be playing around with now that we have it as an option. So yeah, it's going to be something probably for me that it'll apply most to some of those situations where a team's shorthanded in the front court and you're getting like a lot of players from the same front court that show up in a lot of lineups just because they project so well. There might be a lot of situations like that where I'm going to primarily use it, but yeah, it's a new feature. We'll figure out some of the best use cases for it as we go. Let's see. What else do we have here? We've got Ace of Spade wants to know DK Tier's most logical plays. All right.
It's a fun way to ask that, I guess.
Yeah, that's got to be like a specified question for an Erickson show. It's like, hey, I want an answer, but only logical. I don't want any galaxy brain stuff here. Only logical choices. All right. So no illogical choices here. So stick away from rostering Tyrese Maxey in tier 1 specs. That'll be illogical.
Oh, that's an Eric Lindquist play. I think we can all agree.
Yeah. You got to be contrarian. All right. So tier 1, it is Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, illogical, Jalen Johnson, and Donovan Mitchell. So for me, amongst those options in tier 1, that's Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, I'm team Jalen Johnson. I think that's a good category to get leverage on. But Jalen Johnson to me projects the best by a pretty good clip.
All right, tier 2, that is Josh Giddey. It's funny to see him grouped with some of these guys that are in here, considering what his fantasy output was looking like earlier on in the year. But Josh Giddey, Michael Porter Jr. in tier 2, Anthony Davis, Pascal Siakam, Evan Mobley. That is Anthony Davis for me.
It's Giddey for me, but MPJ is pretty close. He's on a really good run. I don't love the matchup with Dallas, but I do have MPJ coming up more than the field for me. But I'd still go Giddey though.
That one is going to be AD for me. Tier 3, we've got Duran Keontae George. We've got Mikal Bridges, Onyeka Okongwu, and then Zach Edey, who is out. I feel like tiers, like DraftKings just I bring this up all the time, but they like forget which players are out and they just throw them in tiers. The Maxey one was understandable, but Edey's been out, or we knew he was going to be out. So anyway, to read it again, Duran Keontae George, Mikal Bridges, and Okongwu. That one for me is going to be Jalen Duran.
Yeah, Team Duran here. I have him way too highly projected today, but I still think he deserves it with how he's played this year. He's been a monster.
Tier 4, that is Vucevic. We've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Benedict Mathurin, Keyshawn George, and Joel Embiid. That is Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I think that's Joel Embiid. I'm not the biggest Embiid fan, but I think he's the winner of that one.
Yeah. I mean, but what's sad times that now it's like, who scores more fantasy points, Joel Embiid or Keyshawn George? Imagine that being a talking point a couple of years ago. Let's see. That one was tier 4. So tier 5, we've got White, Claxton, Flagg, PJ Washington, Dyson Daniels, and Jaren Jackson Jr., another guy who's fallen off in a massive way this year, Triple J. And for me, that answer is going to be Claxton.
Ooh, I go Kobe White. Yeah, I like Kobe White overall. I think he's played pretty well in the year. He's not rebounding like Giddey, but the other rates look way closer than I think people realize.
And then we've got here tier 6. This is Nembhard, Knepel, Grimes, McCollum, Garland, Buzelis, Brandon Miller, and then Tyson. Ooh, all right, this is an interesting one. This is Knepel for me.
Yeah, Knepel. Grimes, I didn't juke the rates. I think if you did juke him, it would be a little bit closer. But I'd go Knepel.
All right, so that takes care of all the tiers there for Ace of Spade. Thank you very much for the super chat. And for everybody else, if you want to support the channel, you don't have to leave a super chat. You certainly could if you want to see our answer. But other ways to simply support us, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and go check out Tails. It is totally free to use Tails. Download the app. That helps us. You could also leave a review. That helps us even more. Leave us a 5-star rating. So here are all different ways that you could support our free content and continue to keep it free. Is just do something simple like downloading the Tails app, leave a rating and review. 5 stars. That would be most helpful. 1 star, that's actually negatively helpful. So make sure it's a 5-star review and maybe a couple sentences on what it is you're enjoying about your experience. Let's see. Mamone, Samson, Calzone, core GPP plays on DK. And the indica play of the night, the sleeper. Okay. All right. So we got a weed reference in here as well. So let's start. Core GPP plays on DraftKings. All right. So for me, as of right now, who are the guys? A lot of the chalk, Embiid, Jock Landale, KJ Simpson, Brandon Miller, VJ Edgecombe, Paul George. There's nobody who, for me, is like a core play that's like sub 10% owned or anything like that. But anybody else that you would add to the mix as a core play for yourself, Spags?
No, yeah, the Philly, Edgecombe, Paul George, KJ Simpson, you mentioned Landale. The Philly wings, though, are definitely more of a core play for me, I think, than they seem like they are for you.
I'd Paul George as one, though.
Okay.
And Edgecombe.
Oh, did you say? Okay, you said them both? Okay, never mind. Then yes, then we're on the same page, and I should not have tried to sow distrust between them.
Yeah, Grimes is not a core play for me. He's the one wing that is not a core play for me from the 76ers.
Which, yes, unfortunately for me too. Same page.
Indica play of the night, the sleeper. That'll be Jared McCain for me. I think that he makes for a decent pivot off of some of the more popular 76ers guys. Let me go and check to see if our ownership is updated here and where we're at on McCain now. Let's see. All right, so Jared McCain, because I know people think he's going to be popular in chat. Let's see if we've had an update. We've got McCain now 8% owned on FanDuel. On DraftKings, we've got McCain now projected for 13% ownership. I know people in chat are bullish on him. I think he's going to be more popular, but our data just doesn't indicate that. So I'm going to continue under the assumption that he's not going to be popular, Spags.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think there's enough value out there. I think people will also feel comfortable enough with KJ Simpson that I don't think they're going to need to go to the bench guy. So like, I think McCain is still a valid play for all the reasons that you outlined. But yeah, to me, I don't think he's going to get mega chalk at this point.
Yeah.
And sleeper play too. For me, it's Stern, but we've talked about him enough.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, that was McCain. By the way, was my my sleeper option. I just wanted to make sure that the ownership was still John Moran officially will play. Just want to make sure that the ownership hadn't come up. Where like I'm going to sit here and be like, oh, I like this guy, low ownership. And then you go check and he's like 40% owned or anything like that. Because I did see we got that ownership update about 10 minutes ago, but. Yeah, still projected to be fairly low owned. Our initial run did have him at 9% ownership. So yeah, he has come up relatively compared to that, but it's still not a massive number on him. It's still pretty low. I want to be overweight to the field to Jared McCain, which also if the chat is so adamant that he must be more popular than he is, I assume a lot of the chat likes Jared McCain as a lower owned play as well for today. Rick Durkin, thoughts on AD for tonight? Spags, where you at on ED? ED. Yeah, erectile dysfunction. That's his new nickname. That's his
I'm very
nickname.
anti.
Yeah. what are your thoughts on AD as a pay-up option?
I am almost as anti as erectile dysfunction. I'm not really getting there quite as much. I think he doesn't look as bad as he has in some recent games. The price tag at 9,500 though. I get it against Brooklyn, probably a better spot. But I'd rather pay up against Jalen Johnson. Maybe that makes me the chalk donkey of the day, which is fine. I see the low ownership at AD. Just projection wise, I'm not really there. But I think that he's a better play than he's been lately, especially going against the Brooklyn. I just would rather play Jalen Johnson. I'd rather play Paul George at power forward, I think. I didn't really get there price wise.
Yeah, it's it's funny because just how times can change. Sort here by projections, and you guys will see that of the high end guys that we have with the highest salaries, you've got Anthony Davis at $9,500, but he's projecting for 4.5 less fantasy points than Cade Cunningham. He's projecting for 7.5 less fantasy points than Jalen Johnson. To what Spag said before, does it mean that AD is unplayable? No, he's fairly low owned at 10% ownership. I'll have some exposure to him, but if I'm just playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, Jalen Johnson and Cade are my pay up guys.
Yeah, exact same page as you. And look, I think AD at a certain point, maybe he will spike that ceiling more and he'll be a little bit better. I think, frankly, the price tag just needs to come down a little bit, and I would be there. To me, Jalen Johnson is just like an auto triple double. And the fact that his one bad game was against Detroit, and it's like I say bad game, he put up 55 against Detroit, but like he's just playing in a different way than AD. AD is not a triple double threat at this stage of his career.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. All right. We have another one here. This is from Reggie. We got Reggie saying, Greg, I've made money tailing you on tails. Is there a reason that I mostly post unders? Yes. The reason I mostly post unders is because some of the bets I'm originating. So things like the same game parlays, the boost bets, those are bets that I'm just originating. But the majority of the bets that I'm posting to tails and the majority of bets that I post for myself come from the OddsShopper Portfolio EV tools, which do have a 7-day free trial. If you guys want to try them out for yourselves for the first time, just head on over to OddsShopper, check them out, 7-day free trial. And if you don't like it, you could just cancel, not pay a dime before those 7 days end. But anyway, the bets are coming from a market-based projection model. And one thing that we have found in our research here at Stokastic and OddsShopper, and this goes back a couple of years, is that the books apply a much higher VIG to overs than unders. So it's a lot easier with a market-based model to find value on unders as a result of that, because it's like the equivalent of buying a product for a cheaper price. It's like you're buying a bet for like $5 instead of $10. There's just a lot more juice applied to overs. So in a market-based model, the unders are more likely to end up finding value. That's the reason why. As a personal aside, something that I like, because I know a lot of people, Spags, they find overs to be a lot more fun than unders. For me, though, I find it very thrilling when players leave games early with injuries and you could troll people online about it afterwards, and you could pretend you had the inside information, and then all of a sudden it becomes a national news story. One of those players ends up getting arrested. So there's benefits to betting unders.
That might be unique to you, I would think. Maybe you don't put that in the marketing materials for the general populace. But yeah, look, I think that, you can find joy in your profits going up. And ultimately, there is always better expected value on unders. For the reasons Greg mentioned, the markets also just don't move as much on to unders because people hate them. There are people that literally, when I was doing stuff for my old startup, probably that, was doing okay work, but we get like random weirdos on Twitter and TikTok and whatever replying. And it's like, I'll never bet an under. And it's like, well, that's why you bet unders, because there's a large portion of people that just don't think you should. And I'm sure it's going well for him.
Yeah, the books know that the majority of bettors, especially rec bettors, are going to be betting over. So they just shade the lines in that direction because that is something that they know they're going to be able to collect a little bit of extra money on. So, Reggie, thank you very much for tailing me. And I'm happy to see that I've made you some coin over on Tails. And yeah, everything I post on Tails is totally free if you guys want to check it out like Reggie has been doing. Let's see. Was there any other questions in Discord? And if we're caught up, Spags, then we could do the nuke of the night. All right, we actually got a lot of questions here. So here's what I think we should do. I think we run the nuke of the night, and then we get caught up on all these questions that are sitting here for us in Discord. So without further ado, it is time, guys, for the nuke of the night. All right, the animation has played, Spags, which means that it's time for you and I to give out one of our favorite tournament plays on the entire slate. And also, now that we've got the boom bust tool, now that we've got this loaded into the data hub, I am also going to sort here by leverage and just show you guys who we have, at least in the tools, as the players who we are currently projecting as the most underweight to the field relative to ownership. And yeah, there's some stale data in here that I have to refresh the page here for with Maxi, but everything else in here, you guys will see. I mean, we still got him for the 0 fantasy points and whatnot, but here are the players that at least the boom bust data has as being the most highly leveraged players on the entire slate. For yourself, Spags, who are you eyeing to play the most in GPPs? And it could go, or whoever it is you want to take it. Who's your nuke of the night?
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. just came down a little bit in the projections for me. So that was who I was going to go with, to not keep saying Jalen Duren for everything over and over again. But I still think Duren at 7% ownership. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to not say Michael Porter Jr. It just seems low for Duren. I just think Duren's been really good. People, I think, don't necessarily realize he's putting up 30 points, 100 possessions. For comparison, Cade's a little bit under 36. It's crazy that Duren, who's a big man, who's mostly just getting shots within 5 feet, is putting up that many points. He's rebounding like a demon. I think the spot versus Atlanta is a good one overall for him. And maybe there's some theoretical leverage if Jalen Johnson fails here. He didn't create assists. He didn't hit shots. Guys created more rebounds for Duren. That's not the reason I'm playing him, but I'm just trying to give a reason why he's good nuke of the night, because I just think he should be more than 7%. We should respect Jalen Duren. I think that's important to me, Greg.
All right. So there's a part of me that wants to say McCain again, but how many times could I talk about the the same guy over the course of the show? So I do like McCain at some lower ownership, but I also want to be trying to give out somebody a little bit different than somebody who I've already talked about a handful of times over the course of the show here. So let's see, what direction do I want to go? Somebody who I like to be a little bit different than the field with. I've got sorted by my exposures in the Sims in front of me. Boy, there's a handful of directions that I think I could go with this answer. All right. I am going to go here with Knipple. So if you look at, he's not unowned or anything on the slate. He's at 25%, but I do have him in 40% of lineups back. So I'm a good amount overweight to the field on Knipple right now. Great matchup against the Chicago Bulls, but also he's somebody who overall has had a very good rookie season, then also is going to be benefiting from the absence of Lonzo Ball tonight. So some of the recent games for Knipple, the efficiency's been down. Overall for the year, he's had great efficiency for a rookie. I think that what he did in the first month plus of the season, unsustainable, right? He's not going to be a guy who's what did he have last month? Yeah, last month he shot 46.5% from the field, 40% from three, 93.5% from the free throw line. He's not going to be that efficient his entire rookie season. But first few games in December, he shot under 40% from the field in 3 of the first 4 games. And that is something that's going to come up a little bit. And then he's also getting the usage bump with LaMelo out for today. So all that put together, the minutes also aren't going anywhere for Knipple. And even in games that are a little bit lopsided, he still ends up playing in garbage time. I like the matchup. I think the field's maybe sleeping on him just a little bit with LaMelo out for today. So give me Knipple as my nuke of the night, Spags. Do you got any exposure to Knipple today?
Yeah, I'm rerunning stuff right now, but I liked Knipple in my stuff before. Was getting him at about 30% of my lineups, so technically a bit above the field. I think what really stands out to me, and this is like a weird thing to stand out, I think, but like Miles Bridges called him the best player on the team, which threw me for a loop because Miles Bridges has thought he's the best player on the team for like years, but he is like visually, if you watch a Hornets game, defers to Knipple more than he has like anybody besides LaMelo on the team in recent years. He does get, does give that opportunity up. And for Brandon Miller, like I think the rates do increase pretty meaningfully for him as well. That's definitely an inhibitor for Knipple. And I think part of why Knipple has come down a little bit in results because the usage is, not as high when you have Miller in. But I think Knipple's ability to do a little bit of everything, like it surprised me. Like I thought he was going to come in and just be, Kyle Korver, his little stereotypey, I guess. But he's doing a little bit of everything in a way that it's been impressive. So I'm not opposed to Knipple.
Would you say you found his athleticism to be sneaky so far?
He's sneaky, but the thing you can tell about Knipple is he shows up early. He works hard. Great family guy as well. He brings teammates literally to his family's house. So, there's a lot of things about Knipple you could love, but scrappy is really what you'd say more than anything.
Blue collar. You know who he reminds me of a handful of athletes, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. Kyle Korver would be another. Yeah, there's a handful. Just little guys he reminds me of just a little bit. But I like Knipple. I think he's been, people in chat are seeing it too. You got accidentally, Matt Lucar said, tomorrow is my birthday. I didn't mean to click on that one. Can I give you happy birthday to Matt Lucar? I did mean to press on the he's gritty, which was right above Matt Lucar there. Yeah, but he's gritty. And then Emacs and hashtag scrappy. But anyway, Matt Lucar. Happy 70th birthday. Absolutely love to see it. And I really hope you enjoy the weekend. But Malakar, how about this? Malakar, hit me up on Twitter tomorrow. Hit me up on Twitter. All right. Let's see. What else do we have for super chats? We got one here from Olrat. Play Champagny or Ace Bailey for low ownership. Let's see.
It's either going to be low owned. I feel like they both come up a decent one.
Champagny's 20% owned.
Oh, yeah. Bailey's only 10. I was getting Bailey more, so I thought he was going to be closer. But yeah, I guess Bailey is a lesser owned option.
So here's the issue, Olrat. Champagny's not low owned, and then I don't really like Ace Bailey. So if it has to be somebody low owned, I'm going to say Ace Bailey, but I only have him in 6% of lineups right now. So whatever. You want a low owned guy. One of them's low owned, the other one isn't. So I'm gonna go with Ace Bailey here. Ace Bailey is the one. By the way, some other really good here replies in chat. Just other thoughts and comments on Knipple. He's very cerebral. He plays the game the right way. That's true. Those are some other ways that people might characterize how he plays basketball. Yeah, he's not very flashy. He's very smart, though. He's very smart. I'm trying to remember who the comedian is who is talking about how smart players never defined as the guy who dunks over somebody from the free throw line. And nobody's ever looked and be like, well, that's a really smart play. I've never thought about doing it. But in some ways, it is pretty smart. Oh, yeah, Ryan Stubbs, coach's kid. He does look like he could be a coach's kid. That is interesting. Yeah, John Prince, he does play with good fundamentals, too. Yeah, a lot of good ways to describe him. Lots of adjectives. Yeah,
the good news, too, is that, we've already given out enough McCain and Duran takes. So I think just let the chat make white guy jokes for the rest of the 20 minutes. We'll be good to go.
And let's get into Discord. Lots of Discord questions here waiting for us. We've got one here from Win. Win wants to know Mathurin or Paul George for today. It's Paul George from the over Mathurin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Mathurin, you're getting a lot of leverage, I guess, at no ownership, but Paul George projects infinitely better, and he's honestly been good since he's come back. Like he's gunning, but he's been good.
And then also he wants to know, are we considering Ethan Thompson today as a run back in 76ers lineup? So Ethan Thompson, somebody who's been playing a little bit more minutes on the Pacers side of the game. He just doesn't really project well enough on a slate that is a handful of guys out and has a good amount of value. So Ethan Thompson, that's I don't have him in any lineups at the moment. Spags, could you talk me into Ethan Thompson?
No, I don't see the reason to do that. He doesn't have over a 10% rate in anything, which it's not usually. I mean, like I know he's played some minutes. I know short slates. People have tried him out. He's been starting occasionally, but he literally has a 7% usage rate, a 5% rebound rate, and an 8% assist rate. He's producing 0.64 fantasy points per minute. not usually the kind of guy you need to play when you got enough games.
Yeah. Yep. I like I say, I've got what I assume is going to be the final version of my lineups that I'm uploading right now. I've got my 150 built out, and that had 0 lineups with Ethan Thompson in it. So looks like that one is going to be a no for me. Then we've got Nick Rue. Nick wants to know, seems like small forward is a tough spot on DraftKings. What's our chalk and good pivot? So small forward, we've got Brandon Miller, we've got Quentin Grimes, we got Spag saying that he likes Michael Porter Jr. Let's see. For me, what am I looking at? It's small forward on DraftKings. I think pretty clearly to me, Brandon Miller is the top overall small forward option. He's also quite popular, but I think it's reasonable. No LaMelo tonight for the Hornets. And then on top of it as well, favorable price point at $6,700. The minutes have started to go up a little bit. Here's some lower owned plays that I also like at the small forward position now. Or I should say one lower on play. Asar Thompson, he's only 10% owned and about 2x the field. So if you guys are looking to get off the board, it's Asar Thompson for me at small forward. I have a very tight small forward pool over on DraftKings. I don't have that many guys that I'm getting exposure to. Quentin Grimes in there as well. But, once again, I'm underweight to the field relative to his ownership. For yourself, Spag, is there anything else that you're really liking at small forward?
No, I don't mind Sham Penny. I'm getting him, I guess about 30% at small forward. MPJ, I'm above the field on getting him also at 30. Asar Thompson, I'm getting too. Didn't get much Grimes and Ace Bailey in the actual power forward spots, but they're also credible enough power forward or small forwards. I would just go Brandon Miller though. I think he's sort of the obvious best play.
Yeah, we've got some more thoughts here on our guy Con Knipple and how his rookie year is gone. We've got Corey Bomber saying he's a great locker room guy. Also, Homer James, good family man. That's true. They picture him with his brothers all the time on broadcast, which is kind of hilarious. Andrew Jennison saying he plays the game the right way. Yet Jake DeWitt stays out of trouble, just keeps his nose clean. He's a good glue guy. Per Ryan Stubbs here. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of good ways to describe. Great shooter also. That one kind of goes without saying. But Knipple, yeah. Lots of people high on him in the chat. Let's see what else we've got.
First guy in, last to leave. That's what we always say about Con Knipple.
He grinds. That's why I said he was blue collar before, Spags. That's he brings his lunch pail to the court every day. Let's see what else we've got. Win wants to know Randall or Bridges on FanDuel for the $200 difference. I prefer Randall to Bridges. I know that Bridges is benefiting from Ball being out, but the absence of Anthony Edwards, it matters a little bit more. I'm going with also fairly low ownership on FanDuel on Julius Randle. Mentioned before, he's just barely over 20% owned. Julius Randle for me, let me double check and see what his ownership is at now. Let's see. We've got Randle now projected for, 24% ownership on FanDuel. It's going to be Randle for me. Do you have a take on a Randle versus Bridges?
No, I think it would be Randall too. I think Bridges is getting a little bit overrated for what the role is without LaMelo. Because frankly, and I know Sexton's out too. You're missing enough guys, but like having Miller and having Knipple in, like it's not the same as it was last year, where I thought Bridges was like a lot of days really slept on by the industry in terms of like the projections when you had LaMelo out. Now you have so many guys you can go to that it's just not the same for Bridges. I think he's still an okay play, but I think Randall, he's a clear number one dog for Minnesota now. Yeah,
Austin in chat saying about Knipple, he just seems like a guy you'd let date your daughter. That's a good way to talk about Con Knipple as well. Although then they have to take on that last name. But other than that, let's see what else do we got. Larson 407. He wants to know, is Darius Garland a decent pivot off of Kobe White at point guard over on FanDuel? Let me go and check my exposure. I do think I was overweight to the field to Garland in the FanDuel lineups I built out, but I'll double check that. Yeah, I do like Garland. Now, with that said, Kobe White is lower owned than Garland, so I don't know that you'd really look at Garland as a pivot in that kind of scenario. But yeah, overall, I do like Garland over on FanDuel. But keep in mind, he's higher owned than Kobe White for today. Let's see. Was there? Yeah, no other super chats. But one more question for us in Discord, Spags. This is coming to us from JT Mack. He wants to know favorite pay up and low owned player for the 555 on DK. All right. Love this question because it is something in general we haven't really talked about here. Spags, who is your favorite guy to pay up for today?
Jalen Johnson, I would say easily. I mean, that's very chalky, but I think the 555, I'd probably stick with close to the cloth on that with Jalen Johnson.
So if If we're just going only pick one player to pay up for, it is going to be Jalen Johnson. As I have finalized my lineups, though, I do like getting overweights to the field relative to the 10% ownership on Anthony Davis. If I'm just picking one or the other, it's going to be a Jalen Johnson across one lineup. Also, keep in mind, Jalen Johnson, $1,000 more expensive than Anthony Davis. But if you have the salary, I do think Jalen Johnson at the high end is the guy to go to. I guess the other part of this, too, do we not even consider... At that price point, I guess Joel Embiid doesn't even fit in the category of a pay. He's just a mid-range option these days now.
Yeah, no, I would say he's not a pay up. In your hearts and minds, he might still be a pay up. But yeah, no, he's cheap enough that he's just a dude.
We got Amy left us a super chat. She wants to know tiers pick. So we did already go over tiers, but no fear, Amy, because now we get to see how good my memory is, where I could try to answer what Spags' ones were earlier in the show. Tier 1, we both went with Jalen Johnson, if I remember correctly. Tier 2, I ended up going with Anthony Davis, but you went with Michael Porter Jr., if I recall. Is that correct?
That sounds right to me.
All right. Tier 3, we have... oh, no, you went with Giddey. You were in between Porter Jr.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I think
Giddey I had a little bit higher, but my heart is with Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
Yes, Giddey, yeah.
Tier 3, we both went with Jalen Duren.
Yep.
Tier 4, that was an easy one. We both went with Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 5, I had Claxton, you had Colby White. And then Tier 6, we both had Knipple. There we go. I nailed it. I listen.
Teamwork makes the dream work. As you've always said, Greg, you in particular, you've long believed that.
Dan Moeller in the chat is pointing out that it is the Friday 8s, not the 5s. Yeah, the nomenclature, how they name the contest, it was like, I don't need the clever titles for the days of the week and changing it up. It would be easier for me if it's just called the same thing every day, but whatever. Other people feel differently. They like the cute names attached to the tournaments. And
what is the Wednesday one offhand? Because I know it's the Excellent Eights today. Fast break? Like, what's the $5?
On Wednesdays?
When it's Wednesday, it's usually, yeah. We didn't have it this week, and I really don't remember it at all.
It's not the wide showdown on Wednesdays?
No, I don't think.
No,
it's whip them out, actually.
That's not it?
No.
Yeah, I just forget sometimes. Like, you think
NBA zone. Z-Rich got it. It's a zone.
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell. I think mine was correct. I think, anyway. People saying, Gafford out. He was doubtful, so that's not anything that was unexpected or that's going to be having to be changed for in our projections. So that's all well and good to go. We are all caught up here in... Oh, no, never mind. There was one other question here. By the way, D'Angelo Russell, he was just ruled out. So that is something that's a little bit of a change. I guess we could address this really quick. Russell's kind of fallen out of the rotation for Dallas, though. He's only been playing a handful of minutes, especially as the team started to get a little bit healthier. So you look at the recent games, 13 minutes, 16 minutes. And that game was because he played all of garbage time. When Dallas lost to OKC by, 21 points, which is actually a good showing against OKC. I feel like if you only lose by 21 points, you did your job against them. He played almost the entire fourth quarter and still only played 15 and a half minutes in that game. So D'Angelo Russell's out. I don't want to say it has zero impact. It doesn't have a significant impact, though. Is this going to change, you think, any of your exposures in a way that matters?
I think it would add a little bit to pretty much everybody else in the rotation, and your point guards, your Brandon Williams, your Ryan Nembhard probably gain a fractional amount of minutes, but I think they could just give a few more minutes spread around to other guys and it wouldn't really impact too much. But they'll look a little bit better. I mean, for whatever it's worth, Russell does chuck when he's in. He just, as Greg mentioned, is in less and less each game, so it doesn't really matter that much on that front.
And we forgot to answer the other part of JT Max's question. He wants to know our favorite low-owned player to roster in the 5-5-5. So for me, I'm going to have to harken back somebody who I talked about a lot at the top of the show, but haven't talked about for a moment, is Jared McCain. And I assume it's Duren for you?
Yep. Team Duren for all the low-owned stuff. And the disrespect of under 10%. Get 15%. Call it a day on Jalen Duren.
Then we've got a question here. Do you have a pacer that you like as a run back in lineups that contain a lot of 76ers players? I don't really have much exposure to the Pacers today. Do you, Spags?
No, not really. I don't think they're really I mean, Nemhard, I don't mind, so I guess I would go him if I had to choose one, but I really didn't get a lot of him. They're kind of fully stocked at this point. Even like Quentin Jackson seems like going to get back in. He won't play minutes, but they have enough guys now. They're not, the team we've kind of grown to know and hate over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking at my exposure. I don't have anybody from the Pacers in more than 10% of lineups.
Yeah, I don't think they're worth a lot more than that.
Also, you don't NBA, it's not like NFL where there's some sort of like correlation by playing. Like there is to some extent playing the other side of the game if it ends up being really up pace. But on a lot of NBA slates, particularly one like this where there's just a lot of value, the problem is the sacrifice that you're making to get to more exposure to just poorly projected players on the Pacers to correlate them. To me, the opportunity cost is just not worth simply getting guys who might be projected who might be projected better, but just in a different game. Like I'd rather take like the 6 or 7 extra fantasy points.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair way to look at it.
Let's see. What else do we have as far as questions? Just want to make sure we didn't miss anything, which we did not. So, Spags, I don't know how you're doing on your lineups. I feel like I'm going pretty good. I uploaded mine. I guess I'll run it one more time with D'Angelo Russell being out because, why not take that into account once we update, which let's see if we've got an update for D'Lo being out. I don't think so.
Yet.
Oh, we do. Or wait, what filter do I have on? Maybe not, actually. I've got a bunch of filters. So let's see. Do we have Russell out in our projection? Not quite yet, but we only had D'Lo projected for 3 minutes.
Oh, he came down a lot there because he was like 14 earlier today. So yeah, that doesn't matter at all. I wasn't going to rerun stuff for Russell being out. So I'm not going to do it now, but I'm good lineup wise. So I think we are blessed to be pretty much done on our lineups.
Is there, we did get a 2v2 question here from Win as well. It is Randall and KJ Simpson or Siakam and McCain. That's going to be a Randall and KJ for me.
Yeah. Those are really nice plays now. I mean, the Randall thing, that you have him on FanDuel, I wish we had him on the DK slate.
And how are you doing on your lineups, by the way? Everything good?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah. So whatever. If you need me to stall, I can.
Oh, no, not at all. I just wanted to make sure if I had to stall for anything. I keep meaning to ask you a follow-up question, then I look down and there's another question from Discord. So I'll keep answering these Discord questions. But Pat Gang Swish wants to know, best play for $4,100 in the utility. Has he set me up? Is that not what Jared McCain's exact? Yeah, Jared McCain.
I think it's got to be McCain at this point. I don't know who else would pop up. I mean, KJ Simpson is more expensive, right? Yeah, so he's 4,500. Yeah, it's got to be McCain. Who else would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking. I guess so. If you don't already have Landale's a good option too. But I presume there's just based on his ownership, you probably already have him. Yeah, so I will say this: if you don't have Jock Landale, then Landale. If you do have Landale, then McCain. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think Landale is the better chalk for a reason, but McCain fits the criteria almost to a T.
And then M. Grizzly wants to know how much Embiid do I have? Ethan wants to know, is 80% of Joel Embiid too much? I have 61% of Joel Embiid is the number that I ended up landing on. 80% Embiid, that's a lot more. Part of it, Matt, like, are you playing 5 lineups? If he's in 4 out of 5 lineups, I don't really have any kind of issue with that. But I don't really inherently think that 80% is too much of Embiid. I do think he's the best overall play on the slate. But what did you end up doing with Joel Embiid? I know you were a little bit lower on him than I was.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing that I'm going to give him a better minimum number because I'm not getting him at all. I got all my ownership went to Duren instead, which is not how I want to play it fully. Would still like to be not out on Embiid, but I'm going to be like 25% Embiid when I put in a minimum amount. I'm not going crazy like you guys.
Yeah, it's funny. People, SC in the chat said, I don't know what happened to Pajemski. Yeah, he works so hard. He's gritty, plays hard. I don't know. Yeah, it's a big fall off for him this year. Big fall off. All right. So as you are finalizing your lineups, is there anything that you got to in the final version of your lineups that maybe you weren't expecting that you didn't bring up over the course of the show?
No, the Embiid being flat 0, I think was a bit of a surprise for me, but now that's fine. And it's all looking okay. You're getting the most Landale, KJ Simpson, not a surprise there. Landale got into a lot of my lineups. Landale's at 94% of mine right now, which might be a bit steep. I'm okay dying on that hill, but that's a little bit aggressive. But yeah, Paul George, Duran, Edgecombe, Jalen Johnson. My core is kind of what I thought it would be.
And then who are the players that you landed on underweight to the most for today? Guys who just didn't show up in that many lineups that are pulling a little bit of ownership. I've got a couple for me. One of them was not surprising. Another one, not totally surprising, but does scare me a little bit.
Let's see. Why don't you give me one of yours and I'll give you one of mine.
Okay. So one of them, Quentin Grimes, not surprising me at all. I kind of went in with that mindset coming into it because, I wasn't going to be getting overweight to every single piece from the 76ers. I'm overweight to Paul George. I'm overweight to Joel Embiid. I'm overweight to Jared McCain. I'm overweight to VJ Edgecombe. But Quentin Grimes is the one that I'm underweight to the field to. And then the other one that I'm underweight to the field to, that this one could go very, very south, Donovan Mitchell. It's just hard to get to all of the pay up options for today. And as far as Mitchell goes, just didn't quite make the cut for me. I only have him in 4% of my top lineups. And that's one that it's a matchup against the Wizards. It could certainly go south. I guess what I'm really hoping for here, because I don't have a massive amount of Cleveland exposure, I've got 20% of Evan Mobley, but I've only got a handful of Donovan Mitchell lineups, is ideally for me just blowout here. And the Cavs just run them off the court.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable bet. I mean, I'm low in the Cavs too. I thought I was going to get more Mobley, but I only have 10%. But I'm real low. I mean, Embiid, I got 25, so I'm not going to be like totally out on him. But I was going to get flat 0, so he would have been a fade for me. Bridges, I'm getting 10% of. I'm really low on him. I am surprised to see Bridges be projected for almost 40% ownership. I don't. That feels like a lot for Miles Bridges.
Yeah, here are the final ownership marks that we have for us. We have 58% to Jock Landale, 46% to KJ Simpson. We've got 41% to Joel Embiid, just under 40%, like Spags was referencing, to Miles Bridges, 38% to Brandon Miller, he's so hard to get away from just because of the position he plays and how weak it is at small forward there. Then you got Paul George, 35% owned. VJ Edgecombe came down a good amount in ownership. If you guys remember at the top of the show, Edgecombe was just over 40% owned and ends up finishing just under 30%. So I think it makes it pretty easy to get overweight to the field to him relative to like the 40. It might have actually been 40 flat that we had at the top of the program. So looking at some of the most rostered players on the slate, like I'm with the field on Bridges, so I get it. Forward eligibility, and then on top of it too, no LaMelo Ball. But if I'm trying to pick like who my favorite Hornets guys are, I do prefer Knipple and Brandon Miller to Miles Bridges. But yeah, I understand why the ownership is what it is.
Yeah, I think that you said a lot there. I think that was all correct.
We got one final question here. Iron Maiden 2, a 2v2 question. Grimes and Ace Bailey or McCain and Brandon Miller? That is McCain and Brandon Miller for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that side.
All right. So for me, the answer is Donovan Mitchell in terms of somebody who I don't have very much exposure to that I think is most likely to just completely blow up the slate and ruin my lineup, Spags. For yourself, who is one guy that you don't have very much of? You're like, oh yeah, I could see this guy going off in a big way and it just totally tanking your night.
I mean, I think Mitchell and Mobley would be the ones. Like I would say the Cleveland guys kind of agnostically. I'm just low on those two in particular. I think I'm with the field on Garland. But those two I think feel like a naked spot because anything against Washington, as you mentioned, could go off. Besides them, I'm just trying to sort by salary here to see if I have anybody I'm low on. I didn't get much Giddey. It does seem like a nice Giddey spot going against Charlotte, and I do think Chicago plays down in competition. So actually Giddey would be a pretty big one for me. As much as Mitchell, really. I think that there's a spot where that game could be competitive. I don't love Kobe White being in for Giddey's production, but maybe Dosunmu being out kind of levels out a little bit. Giddey could put up like 60 in the spot, and it wouldn't shock me because Charlotte's that bad and kind of feels like a triple-double spot for him, but projection just wasn't there for me.
If you guys have not done yet, do Spags and I a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also if you're looking for more bets, content for myself and all the other guys at Stokastic, go over to Tails. Either go to tails.bet or you can download the Tails app. It is totally free to do so. Everything I post over on Tails, it's free. There's no reason not to take advantage of it, Spags. Free, anybody could afford, well, maybe, I think Eric might have a negative bank account balance, so maybe he can't afford free. Everybody else that, like Eric goes to the food court at the mall, they offer him the free samples. He goes, whoa, free, I can't afford that, too expensive for me. But everybody else, you could afford free. You could afford free. So download the Tails app and leave us a nice review if you're enjoying the experience. Other than that, guys, have a great night, have a great weekend, I'll see you back here on Sunday for the NFL show. Later, guys.